Welcome to The Mountain in Us, a podcast where the journey gets its voice. I am Taran Singh, your host. Here we greet the thrills, jolts, ascents, and descents of our uncharted adventures. Hey, everybody, welcome back to The Mountain in Us. Today, my guest is Kristin Joy Ekkens, an inquisitive Michigan native, or I should say a freshwater OG, a soul passionately committed to the rolling trails of the landscapes of Michigan and the beats of life, founder of Exponential Joy, a multicultural storyteller. I'm so thrilled to have a fellow OG, freshwater OG, in this show. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's truly a pleasure to be here with you. So if you want, we can jump into the topic and I'll tell a little bit about myself and then tell you what I'm hoping we can talk about together today in our conversation. I know we'll have so many amazing connection points, but just briefly, as you mentioned, that I am the founder of Exponential Joy. I'm also the founder of Exponential Inclusion. And I've been working with companies and individuals, leaders around the world for the last 20 plus years, working with people, individuals, leaders, and working through, what I found was focusing on culture transformations, some of the most difficult work that happens within organizations when you're trying to navigate change and uncertainty, and you're trying to create new cultures as they come together. And what I found while doing that and that work in the exponential inclusion, I actually found focusing back down on the individual and what gives them meaning and purpose and joy is critical. So this is why I founded Exponential Joy, and I'm excited because the topic I'd love to discuss with you further today is around that. It's around what is exponential joy? How do you create joy in your life? What does that actually mean for us? And diving in, how I see joy and how you see joy too. I'd love to learn from you in the process.
Oh, no, thank you, and thank you for building the thread of the joy. And we want to start with Michigan landscape, essentially, right? It's incredible, from the three lakes bordering, the forests, the dunes, the tulip fields, and every town has their personal lake. I'm so jealous when I think about it, even though I have Michigan is still my home and I live in California. But I want to understand from you this unique space that you are born and raised in. How do you identify that space within yourself, your identity, and also the perspective of life that Michigan has shaped you in?
Yes, there's a lot there, and I'll try to make it short in a sense. But just to say, we call ourselves, it's kind of a funny name that we have for ourselves here in Michigan. We call ourselves Michiganders. And for me, I can personally speak to why I identify so strongly. Born and raised here, I did live abroad in a few different countries, in Spain and Mexico and Costa Rica. But my home, and when I come back after an international travel, home is Michigan. And part of what I found growing up here, so I grew up in the inner city and in the inner city of Grand Rapids. And this was a place that, where I lived, and my parents, they were a social worker and an elementary school teacher. They intentionally said, let's live in the space, in the community that we work in. And that shaped who I am today. That was actually the most pivotal identity piece for me in shaping my identity, was to understand myself in community, to understand myself in how I operate with people from all different walks of life, from all different cultures. And so, yes, I'm a Michigander. I often will relate first back to belonging to a space in the inner city and always feeling like a fish out of water in many ways. And then at the same time, what we did to get out into nature, because nature is such a huge piece about who I am and how I operate in this world. It's because my parents, to get out of the inner city, we didn't have a lot of money, But what they wanted for me was experiences and experiences in nature. So we went camping a lot, and Michigan is one of the best places. Now, I don't want to put this out there publicly because I don't want everyone to flood here because it will change our landscape, but I will share. We have dunes. We have incredible, as you mentioned, lakes, freshwater lakes where we can go to. In the winter, we can go skiing. In the summer, we go skiing, snow and water, right? So the hiking and the camping for me, though, is also part of my identity as a Michigander. And now I help other people do that, not just in Michigan, but around the world in spaces to spark their adventure, find connection to nature, and live more deeply and love more deeply.
Thank you. Thank you. When I lived in Michigan, one thing was very, very particular, and I know you probably have stories that everybody lends a hand, right? That when you live in a community, you will shovel for others.
Yes.
You would pick up leaves in the fall. And I bet you had those moments growing in the inner city of Grand Rapids. Can you please share that connection of the community that you made? Now it has turned global.
Yes.
How did that, that blooming happen? Why, first of all, and what were certain things that made that bloom happen for you?
Yes. Oh, thank you for that question. It's one of my favorite ones, actually, because yes, I see myself even more than a Michigander. I see myself as a global citizen. And what sparked that in me? I mean, usually people say, the work that you do in the space, working across cultures, because that's really what I've been doing over the last 22 years or so. What sparked that for me was first starting and living in the inner city, but then I quickly realized when I was in college that I wanted to learn about these other cultures. And in order to do that, I needed to be immersed. I wanted to learn truly about people who see the world differently than I do and what makes it that way. And so learning about different languages and cultures and people, and actually going and living in other people's homes, sacred spaces where they allowed me to come in and live with them to understand their way of being, was something that sparked in me something I cannot, no matter what, if I wanted to or not, I cannot just, that flame is lit. Now I need to go and travel the world and meet other people and other cultures. But the other thing that happened when I came back from living in Spain and in Mexico and in Costa Rica, when I came back, I realized there were people living in Michigan that also needed to connect even more deeply and saw themselves as living in Michigan for that time, but that wasn't home to them. And it sparked in me something that said, people, when I went and lived in their own homes, so generously allowed me to be welcomed and feel like I belong. I need to do the same thing for the immigrants and the refugees that are moving into Michigan right now, that don't know, they don't feel like this is home yet because they were new to the space. And I felt it was part of something I needed to do to welcome them. And as you said, that is something, especially in West Michigan, we pride ourselves. We actually have a term, West Michigan nice, can be a good and bad thing all at once, but that people usually experience us first as being very nice people, because we will help each other out. We will smile at each other in the morning and say hello when we're passing to strangers. We do those types of things where you don't see that in big cities.
Yeah, I still remember that. And I have carried that habit to California too. I still say hello to everybody in my town. And it was awkward for first time when I was in Michigan. Why is everybody saying hi to me? I don't even know them. Right?
Yes.
But you're right, that open. And, part of what you said, it reminded me of a line that I have in one of it. A heart needs a heart to rekindle. It is just like, a warm heart that opens for us, helps us be open to the world. And what a way to put it out there. And I'm so proud of the work that you're doing, that knowing you is, and we're all, nobody's permanent here in world, but just to show, just to have somebody walk into your home or help them find a piece of ground that they can live and pursue happiness is I think the best gift that somebody can give to anybody.
And it's this reciprocal thing, right? That yeah, I have felt that other people have given me such joy and have allowed me to see the world differently through their eyes, which I think is such a generous thing. When someone allows you, like you said, with their heart, they've extended their heart to me. And for me, as I mentioned, I actually started my career teaching English to speakers of other languages. And this is where I was able to see the heart of the refugees and immigrants who are coming to Michigan and see their heart and some of the pain that frankly they were bringing because they were coming not necessarily by choice if they were refugees, but they were coming, and the gratitude that they showed, of just being in a place, it opened my eyes to something completely different. It opened my eyes to truly understanding and seeing the world differently because of them. So I'm just grateful for that experience. And one of the interesting experiences I had was teaching English at the picnic table there was for immigrants, actually for migrant workers who came from Mexico and would go to Florida to pick oranges. They'd come up to Michigan, and in Michigan it was apples and it was blueberries, all of these things that they were picking. And I was able to experience something that, yes, I was there as the teacher, but I learned so much more than the quote unquote students did. And that opened my eyes to a whole new world again.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And you talk about this in a very casual manner, but you intentionally pursued linguistics to reach a wider humanity. And your pursuit for learning Spanish. I want to first of all understand a little bit more what got you into languages. What was the motivation behind that? Especially, Michigan is one place where Spanish is like even not just a language, but it's an alien language. Like I came to California and first thing I said, I better learn Spanish. I can't even order a vegetarian meal, man. I go look there and I said, oh, can I get something without meat? And everybody looks at me, right? So, or I can't even get if I have to order tea with the leche caliente, it's harder to get it if you don't know Spanish, right? So
that's right. That's right. I love that. I started learning Spanish. Maybe I'll say that. I started learning Spanish in high school. And it was just, you had to choose a language. What language are you going to choose? And I thought, well, Spanish is the most used here, but we're landlocked in a way in that we're not next to Mexico. We're not next to somewhere that Spanish is flooding in, except it became that for me as I chose the path of work that I did and volunteering in our communities. And we've got a pretty large Latina community here in West Michigan. But at the time, people were like, okay, why are you getting into, your degree in Spanish? I would say for me, it was actually about learning about people. In order to learn about this, the easiest way I can say it, in order to learn, truly understand someone, I wanted to speak their first language. I wanted to truly be able to connect with other human beings who saw the world differently than me, again, but do it in a way that it's not them trying to speak English to me because it's my first language that makes me comfortable, but that if I flipped and actually learned even the grammar of a language, you can start to understand how people see the world differently because the grammars are so different. So even in Spanish, for example, you don't take ownership if your arm breaks. For example, in English, we say, I broke my arm. And in Spanish, you wouldn't say, I broke it. You say the arm is broken. And just that grammatical difference actually shows culturally and the values of a community, of a people. And that that ignited my curiosity to like decode language, to understand people because of the language that they were using.
Oh, that's beautiful. Any first interactions with the language is, something that I carry to my heart, and I'll share this with you a little bit. I was in Washington, and for a wedding, and we our they gave us a job to bring flowers from a store, and we went there. And long story short, the flower shop was closed, and my wife and was asking in English here and there, and I saw somebody that were putting flowers in some place, and I guess they were from Hispanic region, and I talked to in Spanish with my broken Spanish, por favor, una momenta, and I spoke whatever I need to speak in my broken. I need help, and I need some flowers for wedding. And she said, "Oh, you speak my language, even though the shop is closed. Let me get you what you want." Right, and seeing that my effort was earnest, I was not gaming them for this, that I'm so blessed to have been given the bless of many languages in my life, and I think it has opened my heart to pursue joy, and that's where I wanted to double click on your pursuit of joy. What does joy mean to you, and how do you cultivate it?
I'm going to first say one thing about language and culture and then jump over to joy.
Yes, all yours.
Okay, the interesting thing that I find about culture and language, and I did a study on this in college, I looked at heart language and heart culture. And when do people use certain languages in order to express themselves, especially when they know more than one language? I, for example, and I don't know, I'd love to hear from you on this, but I, for example, jump into Spanish when I'm passionately speaking about something. Sometimes that means when my kids, who are now teenagers, but when they were little, and they also speak Spanish, but when they are in the grocery store and I know I need their attention and they've run off down the aisle and they're looking at something, I can switch in and say, Guillermo, ven aquí. Like, William, come here now. And he's like, if you're just listening to this, right? He has this look on his face like, oh, okay, gotta go.
No, that's a funny one. Funny thing you say that. I tell my son 12-year-old when we have to go, vamos, rápido, rápido. Yes. So, and when I have to do something, like when I have to curse him, I sometimes use Punjabi, because the thing with my mother tongue is the curse are also sweet. You don't, in Punjabi, when you curse somebody, it actually feels you're giving the love, right? So the language itself is so sweet, right? So it is.
I love that.
Yeah. So, but that's, I think, is the beauty of languages, that there is, even though I write in English, but part of me, my mother tongue is still embedded in my thinking, and as part of my what I call makeup, that I can think in that terms of kindness and belonging, which English also has it, but English, as we know, language has evolved more from a purpose than from a culture. Yes. So big difference there.
Yes, that's important, and I do feel like the heart culture piece, it's kind of, and it's this. I switch into Spanish and English in my thinking, depending on where I'm at. And some people actually ask me, this is back to the Michigander, they ask me where I'm from. And I have people in Michigan who say to me, where are you from? And I say, I'm from Michigan. And they say, no, really, like, where are you from? Because your accent is different. And I'll say, that's really interesting you say that. I'm from Michigan, right? And then I'll say, but what you may be hearing, because this is what I've learned, sometimes they think I'm from Scandinavia, and I'm like, is it how I look? Yes, my ancestors did come from, the Nordic and Scandinavian area, but at the same time, I'm learning it's the Spanish. And if I had just been speaking Spanish, sometimes it comes out in my accent, because I can tell that my tongue is moving in a certain way that was with Spanish. But all that to say, I'm with you that it's like, for me, I wish I knew more languages. I truly, my goal right now is Arabic. That's what's right now. I'm trying to learn Arabic, and I'm really at the very fundamental level. Like, I need a lot of learning still in this space. But why? I do a lot of work in Saudi Arabia. Yes, I can communicate 100% of the time in English. I don't have to know Arabic in order to do work there or anything. But for me, it's critical, as we we're talking about, to know people and to show that I care enough that I'm willing to learn a new skill, a new language, in order to connect with you more fully. And I think that merges us into the joy conversation.
Yes, and you know, and I'll give that question again in maybe, you know, and joy is so obvious, right? And joy is also not so obvious.
Yes. So true.
Right. And we can, you know, we always build our thinking that joy has to 100% correlate with happiness all the time. But we know, and you know, from work you are doing and the work you have chosen to do, that joy also comes with sometimes being the black sheep, and also sometimes shedding your own insulated wool. You can't just be in the comfort corner. Talk to us about how that relates to in your concept of joy, and why we should care about these two things: the black sheep joy and the insulated wool joy, both.
Yes, I love that. I love that question, because so how I see joy, first, it's this, there's an internal and there's an external. It's a noun, it's a verb, it's a sense of being, it's also a doing, right? You need to actively be engaging in joy, but you also can be joy. And this is where I feel like, for me, what joy is, you know, it's a sense of well-being, fulfillment, and connection, but it goes so much further. And there's this piece of being tied to the state of being, comes back down to our true essence. And this is where I think joy, like love and peace, is at each one of our human beings at our true essence. And we're trying to find that again. Some of us are further along in that journey and finding that. I believe in an infinite state of joy, for example, that you can just be in the space of joy, even when, so this is where it's different to me from happiness. You know, it's joy to me is very much tied to, you know, when I want to say it in a funny way, I'm not going to, when there's challenge, when there's change, when there's uncertainty, when there's disruption, joy can still be there, even when we feel anger, sorrow, anxiety, all of these things, that we can be in a state of joy. But when all those, I call them growth moments, are happening, if someone knows that they live in a state of joy, they react differently to those moments. And this is where the black sheep comes in, because I also believe that joy is connected to, you find that infinite state of joy when you're very aligned with your meaning, why you're here on this earth, when you're very aligned with your purpose and you're living on purpose and you're leading on purpose. And for me, what I found, and this hasn't always been the case, I haven't always known exactly why I'm here. I had a sense for it since I was very young, but I did realize, and now specifically the last 3 to 4 years, I've been saying why I'm here on this earth, and my mission is to share joy, share kindness, be a light, and teach others to do the same. And so that's where I can be a black sheep sometimes, because that's not always easy. I do this in the face of disruption. People might see me as going against the grain, and they may see me as, well, she's a disruptor. Well, I am when it comes to I see something that people are operating on status quo just because it's been that way and that's why they're doing it, when really it's not aligned with who humanity even is meant to be. It's not in the values of us as humans. It's not about this kindness, this joy, this love, this peace. If it's going against that, that's when I might be that disruptor, and I do it in a kind and loving way, but I see that we need to operate in a different way.
In when you say that, do you think that the way conflicts happen today would be different if we were to ground ourselves in thinking that joy is our only purpose and the purpose?
Oof. Can you imagine? I mean, really, if we were to envision that if everyone approached a conflict with joy in their heart, even though they may not see each other, they may see each other differently or may not be aligned fully or may disagree, but if they had joy in their heart, then there's more likelihood that that conflict would not grow into something that it does today, right? Fester and become this angry mix of things, but that we can still disagree. We can still have these growth moments, but to be able to see the other person and truly see them and value them, I mean, that's where, to me, if I have joy in my heart as one of the foundational things, then I will see you, even if we disagree on something, I will see you as the beautiful human that you are first. And then all the things around that, yeah, we can disagree, but I'm not going to blow up about something. Now, do I ever get angry? Yes, I am definitely human. I'm not going to pretend I don't, right? But these are the times that it comes back to, for me, if we can, and this is where exponential joy comes in and how I define it. I feel like exponential joy allows joy and energy as a multiplier, that it creates this space of, if we have more people who are living on purpose, who are seeing joy in their heart and wanting to radiate that out to others, then we can actually create these conditions for people to live more fully and lead with purpose, to amplify their impact for a greater good. And I believe the exponential piece of this is, the more of us that are finding joy and amplifying joy, the more that this ripples out and create communities that are more joyful too.
One thing that you think we all should do that can add to the purpose and joy in our life, one practical advice that you would say, Taran, you better start doing this day today and never stop it.
Yes. Thank you. I love that question. You have amazing questions. You're incredible at this. All right. So I call these different things, I'm going to say the two different ways. One, joy blockers, what are actually blocking your joy, and then joy amplifiers. And the joy, if I start with joy blockers, just an example of what that could be, there are internal ones I see around our mindset and emotions, and there are external ones that may be related to our environment or our relationships. So the internal, one example is fear or self-doubt. This, as especially when I'm working with leaders and entrepreneurs, I have seen, and some people call it this imposter syndrome, but this fear of failure stops them from doing what they are meant to be doing. And so, if this is a blocker, then to amplify it, it's actually doing the hard work of looking at yourself. And I'm a high performance coach, so this is part of what I do, is help set the foundation for what are those habits that you need to help you first define, if you don't know what your purpose is and your meaning here, and define it, figure that out. Let's dive in and do that. And then let's figure out why the self-doubt keeps creeping in. And so it's actually doing that inner work that you need to do in order to find this presence, this peace that we all can have. The amplifiers, so to answer a different way, one main thing that I've seen, so gratitude is so closely linked to joy. And one of the foundational, so I've put together this joy awareness scale. And in part of this scale, from the research that I've done, and based on a number of things, actually even what a book that is amazing, the Book of Joy, the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu had conversation. I listened to it on Audible. I highly recommend it. They have conversation on joy, and they talk about the 8 pillars of joy. And I've embedded that in a way into this scale. And one of the very first things is gratitude. So the first thing I've been trying to practice to create more joy and to wake up in a joyful state is the first thing I do when I wake up. Now, I'm not perfect at this, but this is what I'm practicing, right? Building in the practice. First thing when I wake up, I'm practicing gratitude. And I'm practicing this, for me, it's saying to God, thank you for having me wake up to be here another day. And how can I show up for the world today? But it's a gratitude for just waking up and setting the stage in a different way. And then going to bed, it's the same thing, a gratitude for everything that happened in that day, even if it didn't go as I had planned, which it usually doesn't. It's right. It's recognizing the amazing things that happened as a result of me not being able to control what happened during that day.
Thank you. And I think the more gratitude we have, the less control we need. Our pursuit for control comes to, it slows down, right? We're not looking for how we can control.
That's right. That's right.
And I know I've known you for a long time now, but one thing that has always stood out to me is that you're not just intentional, but you are grounded in how you approach joy, right? And how did Michigan play? How did your landscape play a role in it? And I also want to go back to your name, Kristin Joy Ekkens. How did Joy became your middle name, and now your first and last name? So I want I should have picked up earlier, but the more I think is the Michiganer is me too slow to wake up today. Yeah, and I think one thing that Michigan people, and that's also secret, Thursday is the start of weekend in Michigan. And so yes. Maybe the Thursday spillover for me.
Oh, so there is a story to my name, and it's not my pen name or stage name or anything like that. So my parents named me Kristin Joy. And the funny thing is, I was Baby Paxton, my maiden name, Baby Paxton, for 4 days. And my parents, finally, the nurse came in and said, we can't discharge you from the hospital unless you name your child. They had a boy's name in mind for me because they didn't find out. I was a surprise that it was a girl. They had a boy's name in mind for me, but not a girl's name. And so they struggled to figure out what name do we want. And before they could leave, it came to them, Kristin Joy. And I think, and I don't know for a fact, but I think they were intentional in this, in that they wanted me to live a life that was around joy and living that purposefully, being joyful. And actually the first name Kristin means Christian. So Kristin Joy. So living, again, to me, that comes back to no matter what religion you are, spiritually living in a space that you know that you're not alone, and that there is a higher power that is helping, and a part of, this is why I'm here today, is to help people see humans together, how we connect, how we can be better humans together, no matter what religion we come from. So that's where Kristin Joy comes from. And I think I've only just, while I've started this work, really fulfilled that name in a sense, to say, I see you, Mom and Dad. Thank you for seeing that in me as a little teeny baby. And now I hope that that's what I can bring to people, is that joy.
You're already bringing it to people, and I thank you for doing that, and kudos to your parents to be such a visionary from day one of your life, or day four of your life in this case.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah. What a beautiful story. You should pen it down and make it a part of your intro book whenever you put your book out.
Oh, yes, I love it. You know how many times I've thought about different books that I will write, and just too many. I've written too many tables of contents for the different things. And now I finally am like, it's time. So I
Yeah.
love that you said that, because it has to be around joy.
Yeah. Whatever you write, I can tell you it is going to be full of joy. I'm going to walk a little bit further, and I know you took a journey to El Camino this year, and why? What was the purpose? If you can just give us what was in your head and walk us back and give us an overview of that journey.
Yes.
And I'm going to bring you back to talk more about that journey in next episode of the podcast. So, give us, don't leave us at a cliffhanger, but give us things. Give us
Okay,
things.
okay, I can do that.
I hate cliffhangers, so I don't watch Netflix at all.
I'll try to leave some things for the next one. I won't go into the full details, but what I can tell you is actually Exponential Joy started in El Camino de Santiago in northern Spain. And I had walked El Camino. So for those who aren't familiar with it, it's a pilgrimage in northern Spain, but it actually starts in France. It goes into Portugal. It is many, many, many miles or kilometers of walking. And so I did it 20 years ago. And I actually almost 25 years ago, I did it and I said, this is amazing. It's transformational. You're walking and you're understanding yourself more. You're understanding nature more. You're connecting with humans from all around the world. And it's incredible opportunity. But then I was, again, at 20, I was in college. I had a different view on life in that moment. So fast forward, last year, all of a sudden it came to me again. It's time to walk El Camino again, and I need to bring others with me. This can be an incredibly transformational journey that I don't want to walk alone. So I didn't know if anyone would say yes, because it's a time commitment and you have to train for it. But I had actually, there were 6 of us, but in the end, there were 4 of us, all coaches, who said yes, trained for it, went, hiked 80 miles in 7 days. And we were able to, at the very end of this leg of the journey that we did, before you get to the end, Santiago, we're almost there. We are like 5 miles away. You finish on this mountain, Mount Joy, in Spanish, Mont Gozo. And you finish on this mountain and you're looking out and seeing Santiago in the end. And I was like, this has to be part of the process for adventures, new ways of people exploring themselves, that it breaks you down physically, it breaks you down mentally, it breaks you down emotionally, each person having their own story as they go. But the biggest thing that we all took away from it was the new profound connection you have to others. And that when you're going through such a raw experience, what others have said, people who walked the entire thing, that when we're at the end, said to me, as I was walking along them as pilgrims, they said to me, there were 3 phases really that I can see that we went through. In the first phase, there's a lot of struggle. Your body's getting acclimated. You're like, I call it grounding. You're grounding yourself as you're going through this and your body's getting used to it. The next phase, you go through turmoil, and I call this growth. Because the growth phase, you are experiencing things that maybe you're having conflict within yourself or with someone else because you're tired, maybe you're hungry, maybe your feet are hurting. You have more conflict than you're used to in this middle part of the journey. We talk about Wednesdays as the hump day, right? It's kind of like the hump days when you're walking, that's like, oh my goodness, this is hard. And then the final stage you've gotten past those challenges. And this is where, to go back to joy, you're finding the space of giving. And so one thing that we say on El Camino, it's then you get to this contribution stage. You want to help people. You've gone through those hard things and you're finding the space of contributing to others and freely giving of your love and your joy to others. So on El Camino, the word you say is buen camino. It's actually a phrase, buen camino. No matter what, you're having whatever phase someone is in, you look over to your fellow pilgrim, and I saw many, like one, for example, who had twisted her knee just before that, and she had tears rolling down her face, because we know you have to bear through it for the most part, unless you're really injured. And I said in Spanish, "Can I help you?" And she said, "No, I just twisted my knee, and now I just have to get to the next city." And I said, "Okay, I'm here. I can help you if you need something." And her husband was there too. And she said, "It's okay." But then I realized, okay, actually they do need not my physical help, but in the mental space they need to be distracted right now. And so just having conversation, we made it to the next village together. I just had to slow down my pace a little bit, but we made it to the next village by just talking to each other and connecting as humans. And at the end, where we disconnected and she said, "Thank you," I said, "Buen camino." And everyone gives each other encouragement and just says, "Buen camino," have a good path, good way. It's hard to describe it in English what it actually means, but it's saying like, I see you on this trail and we're in this together. That's really how I can describe it.
Ben Camino to you too, to sharing that beautiful insight with us. And as I promised, I'll have you back. But more importantly, also, thank you for bringing Mountain of Joy into Mountain in us. I never knew about anything about El Camino. Before I let you go for the day today, I usually ask people, what they're reading. But for Michigan people, I want you to maybe describe a place where in Michigan, where those who have never been to Michigan or want to go to Michigan, that they should put it on their bucket list or their joy list. I would say it in that sense, that please do go with it. Can you describe and tell us that place? And do not hide it, please. Do not be
fine. I'll share it.
I don't need the exact coordinates, but at least
Well, I will give you a name that you will find the exact coordinates if you look it up. So I'll actually show you, because this is what we do in Michigan. We show our hands. And now it raised my hand, but here I'll show you. So you can see this, but I'll describe it to the listeners, right? As you're going up the coast, you go all the way up. So I'm in the West Coast, we call it, of Michigan. And you follow up the lake all the way up to the top of the hand. And there's a place called Sleeping Bear Dunes. And there's so much rich history, and we'll even say myths, but from the indigenous people of Michigan, and the culture that is so deep in that. But the story behind Sleeping Bear Dunes, if you can learn about that before you go, and then you go and see it, and there are these lookout points from Michigan. And when you're sitting in the dunes, in the sand, looking out over the water of Lake Michigan, you see this island. And there's actually a few islands, and these are the sleeping bears. And it's incredible. So an incredible story, but also you will not see dunes like this anywhere else. So a fun thing, adventure, would be go take a dune buggy. So go and do a dune ride and take this ride. Now, don't try to walk across Sleeping Bear Dunes or the dunes, because it's actually desert-like. So warning, be careful. People think they can do it without any water. You can't.
No. And, I'll leave it there for the rest of my audience to discover the Sleeping Bear Dune, but we'll come back to talk more. Again, thank you so much for bringing joy to my Thursday afternoon, all the way from my beautiful home. I still call Michigan my home, being a Bronco person, and I also grew up in Western Michigan for part of my mature life happened there, and a lot of it is visible in my first poetry collection, Time and Knots. Autumn is my favorite season for being born and being raised by the Michigan Leafs. That's what I tell myself. So thank you, Kristin Joy. This happiness and this joy that you're bringing to the world, it is so essential for us in these times. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on the Conversation Trails of the Mountain in Us podcast. Each episode here is crafted with love, adventure, and reflection. We hope you have enjoyed this one, and we welcome your thoughts on it. And if you want to be on the show, feel free to reach out.